Hi everyone, welcome back to BookSmart Insights, a channel sharing knowledge for personal development through good books. Today, we will tackle one of learners' most significant frustrations. How do we remember things long term? How do we make memories stick? Have you ever felt that surge of frustration with yourself? You finish reading a fantastic book, feeling totally inspired, nodding along with every point, only to find that just a few weeks, or maybe even days later, the knowledge seems to have evaporated. It feels like a blank slate, like you have never read it. Or perhaps you see it in your kids or students. They study hard. Still, it's always in one ear and out the other, learning something today only to forget it tomorrow. Why does this happen? Why does our brain seem to prefer forgetting over remembering? If you're nodding along right now, rest assured you are not alone. This is an incredibly common experience. The good news is that we can use our brains to be more obedient and hold on to the information we want them to keep. Understanding how our brains work and applying the proper methods is the secret. In today's episode, we will unpack some amazing memory secrets shared in a book tentatively titled Exam Brain Science, written by a leading expert in brain science from Japan, Dr. Yuji Ikegaya, a professor at the University of Tokyo. He even has a cool nickname, Dr. Hippocampus, because he's dedicated his career to studying a tiny but compelling part of our brain, the hippocampus, the key to forming long-term memories. Now, his book isn't dry or academic at all, folks. Quite the opposite. It's written in a light, witty, and easy-to-understand style. It helps lift the veil on the mysteries of the brain, explaining why we forget so quickly, and most importantly, how to overcome that goldfish brain syndrome. Suppose you're still learning haphazardly, sometimes remembering or forgetting. In that case, you might be stuck in that endless cycle of learn today, forget tomorrow. So without further ado, let's join BookSmart Insights as we explore this book's 4 magic methods, designed to help you turn knowledge into a permanent part of your mind, remembering longer, deeper, and forever. Ready? Let's dive in. Before jumping into specific techniques, we must get acquainted with the main character in our brain's memory story, the hippocampus. The name might sound strange, but trust me, understanding this little guy is the first and most crucial step to improving your memory. Dr. Yuji Ikegaya explains it. Imagine our brain is like a supercomputer. It has a central processing unit, CPU, and a hard drive. Every day, we take in countless pieces of information from the world around us through our senses. What we see, hear, smell, taste, touch. All this information is initially processed temporarily, like data stored in a computer's RAM. It's just temporary storage, but we want to hold on to a piece of information long term and turn it into knowledge, a fundamental skill we possess. In that case, that information needs to be transferred to the brain's hard drive. This hard drive is the neocortex, the storage center for long-term memory. Here's the catch. To get from temporary storage to the long-term hard drive in the neocortex, all information has to pass through an extremely strict checkpoint, the gatekeeper. At this checkpoint is none other than the hippocampus. The hippocampus's job is to filter everything, deciding which information is worthy of moving on to long-term storage and which isn't. Information deemed unimportant gets discarded, or in other words, forgotten. So, what criteria does the hippocampus use to make this life or death decision for information? Why is this gatekeeper so strict? This strictness isn't arbitrary. It comes from millions of years of human evolution. Since prehistoric times, remembering certain information was critical for survival. The hippocampus is programmed to prioritize information about survival, danger, painful experiences, and things necessary to sustain life and pass on our genes. That's why a child who accidentally touches a hot stove will vividly remember that burning sensation for a long time without needing anyone to teach it repeatedly. They'll automatically pull away the next time they see something similar or feel the heat. Because the information touching hot things causes pain was stamped by the hippocampus with high priority, survival-related, and sent straight to long-term memory. Similarly, for our ancestors, remembering the face of an enemy, knowing where to find clean water, or recalling where dangerous animals lurked, were pieces of information that determined whether they lived or died. However, in today's world, the knowledge we want to learn, a new language, complex math formulas, the details of a historical event, programming skills, the content of a self-help book, while necessary for personal growth and our careers, clearly doesn't pose an immediate life-threatening danger like encountering a saber-toothed tiger or touching fire. So what do we do? How can we persuade this demanding hippocampus gatekeeper to open the gates for this tamer knowledge to enter the long-term memory zone? The answer sounds mischievous. We have to trick the hippocampus. That's right. We need to use a few tricks to disguise the knowledge we want to remember, turning it into signals the hippocampus recognizes as important. We must keep knocking on the door and presenting the information until the hippocampus is convinced, or maybe just confused, that, wow, this information keeps showing up. It must be essential. Maybe it's related to survival in some way I haven't realized. And then the gate to long-term memory will swing open. Sounds intriguing. So how do we effectively trick the hippocampus? Let's explore the 4 specific methods right now. The first and perhaps most fundamental way to get past the hippocampus gatekeeper is by using the persistent rain soaks deep tactic. It sounds like common sense. Well, brain science confirms the power of this approach. Persistent rain soaks deep. Like a steady, gentle rain eventually soaking deep into the earth, persistent exposure makes information sink into our minds. Imagine this. You bring a new piece of information, a new foreign language vocabulary word, to the hippocampus gate. The first time, you present the word. The hippocampus glances at it and sees nothing dangerous or directly related to eating or surviving. It shakes its head. Not important. Move along. And poof, you forget the word after a short while. But you don't give up. The next day, you bring the word back. The hippocampus looks again. You again? Still nothing special. Next, you persist. You get it back again and again. You keep repeating the act of presenting this information. At some point, the hippocampus starts to pay attention. It wonders, why does this piece of information keep showing up? It's not dangerous, but it appears this frequently. Could I be missing something important? Is it actually necessary for survival in some way? This constant repetition plants a seed of doubt, a sense of ambiguity in the hippocampus's mind. Finally, it decides, all right, maybe I should let this into long-term memory just to be safe. That's the mechanism behind repetitive review. It's not just about rereading. It's about sending continuous signals to the hippocampus, saying, this information matters, don't forget it. However, simply repeating information randomly isn't efficient. We need to repeat it intelligently, based on a very famous scientific concept about memory, the Ebbinghaus forgetting curve. German psychologist Hermann Ebbinghaus conducted pioneering research, discovering that we forget information along a predictable curve. Right after learning something new, the rate of forgetting is speedy. For example, if you know 10 new vocabulary words, you might have forgotten almost half of them after just 1 hour. After 24 hours, 1 day, you might only remember 3 or 4 words. And after 48 hours, 2 days, that number could dwindle to just 2 or 3. Scary, right? Most of our initial learning effort can go down the drain if we don't have the right review strategy. So, what should we do when memories keep fading away like this? The single most effective answer is spaced repetition. This means reviewing information at strategic intervals right before we're about to completely forget it. Each review session helps to flatten the forgetting curve, reinforcing the neural pathways and slowing down the rate of forgetting for subsequent intervals. Reviewing isn't just something you should do, it's something you must do if you want knowledge to stick with you. No review means no long-term memory. However, reviewing also needs a rhythm and a scientific schedule. Otherwise, it becomes exhausting and ineffective. Just pulling everything out for review every single day would be overwhelming. Based on research on the hippocampus and the forgetting curve, Dr. Yuji Ikegaya compiled a highly effective spaced repetition schedule that I have personally tested with surprising results. This schedule is designed to intervene precisely when memory starts to fade. First review on day 2, after you first learn and memorize the information. Reviewing after 1 day. Second review, 1 week after the first review, not 1 week after the initial learning day. All right. Third review, 2 weeks after the second review. Fourth review, 1 month after the third review. You'll notice a massive difference with just these 4 spaced review sessions. The information will become incredibly consolidated in your brain. For students, applying this schedule from the beginning of a semester means that when midterms or finals arrive, studying will be much less stressful. The knowledge is already there. I need a little nudge to recall. This is the secret weapon that many high-achieving students quietly use. You might be thinking, oh, that sounds complicated. I always cram right before the exam, pull all-nighters, and still get good grades. Yes, that can happen. The author also conducted experiments and found that spaced repetition and last-minute cramming can yield similar results in terms of the score at the exact moment of the test. But the crucial difference lies in the following. What happens after the exam? About a week later, the knowledge almost vanished for those who cram entirely. It's the classic give the knowledge back to the teacher scenario. Why? Because when a large amount of information is forced into the brain abruptly in a short period, the brain doesn't have enough time to process and consolidate it sustainably. It's only stored temporarily to deal with the exam. Once the pressure is off, the forgetting happens incredibly fast. Conversely, for those who use spaced repetition, distributing their learning over time, the knowledge has been approved by the hippocampus and transferred to the neocortex hard drive through those 4 strategic reviews. It has become part of their long-term memory, much more robust and durable. After the exam, they still remember and can apply that knowledge. Now, take a moment to reflect. How many exams does a student take throughout their academic life? If we forget almost everything after each exam, how much knowledge remains after 12 years of education and 4 to 5 years of university? Are we learning to pass tests and get grades? Or are we learning to acquire knowledge and use it later in our lives and careers? This is a question every learner needs to honestly answer. Another piece of advice from the author related to this method. When learning something new, choose one primary reference book or core resource first. Read it repeatedly and review it according to the schedule above until you truly grasp the knowledge from that source. Don't rush into studying many books or materials on the same topic simultaneously. This scatters the brain's focus, making each study session feel like learning slightly different new information, making it very hard for the hippocampus to identify the core information that needs repetition to form long-term memory. Go deep with one source before branching out. So we've mastered the first method, using strategic repetition to persuade the hippocampus. But are there other, perhaps more subtle, more enjoyable ways? Absolutely. Let's explore the second method. Besides knocking on the hippocampus's door with repetition, there's another way to make memorization more effective, easier, and enjoyable. That is, by sparking curiosity. To understand why curiosity is so powerful, we need to touch upon another scientific concept related to memory. LTP, long-term potentiation. Sounds technical, but think of it simply like this. LTP strengthens and reinforces connections between brain nerve cells, neurons. When a neural connection undergoes LTP, the signal transmission across it becomes more potent and efficient. It's like a path in the forest. If many people walk on it regularly, it gets stimulated. It becomes more expansive, more transparent, and easier to travel. LTP is essentially the process of widening the path for memories in our brain. The more LTP generated related to a piece of information, the more profoundly and durably that information is remembered. People often say our brains are basically the same in capacity, that no one is inherently smarter or dumber than anyone else in an absolute sense. There's some truth to that. But why, in reality, do we see some people who remember things quickly and for a long time, learning one thing and understanding 10, while others struggle with memorization? One crucial reason is the difference in the amount of LTP produced in their brains during learning. So, how can we boost LTP? Scientists found that directly stimulating the hippocampus, for example, with tiny electrical currents in a lab, can increase LTP. The spaced repetition method we discussed is also an indirect way to stimulate and generate LTP. But there's a more natural, pleasant way anyone can do it: through curiosity. Dr. Ikegaya points out that besides alpha waves related to relaxation and beta waves related to alertness and focus, our brain also has another type called theta waves. The magic happens here. These theta waves appear when we feel curious, interested, and eager to explore something. When theta waves appear, they promote the natural production of LTP, even without the hippocampus needing to be constantly knocked on by repetition. When genuinely curious about a topic, you actively seek information, feel engaged, and ask questions. This state of mind is like opening the door for knowledge to enter and stay. Think about the image of the genius Leonardo da Vinci. Even in his 60s and 70s, he was passionately studying the tongue of a woodpecker, immersing himself in exploring the natural world with boundless curiosity. People like him often have extraordinary memories. Why? Because they learn not out of obligation, not in misery, but with excitement and a deep desire to understand the world. Or consider a 3-year-old child. The world around them is a treasure trove full of novelty and wonder. They are curious about everything. Why is the sky blue? Why do leaves fall? How does the cat meow? This innate curiosity helps children learn about and quickly remember the world around them. Often, you only need to tell or show them something once, and they remember it without much repetition. Curiosity is the most natural and potent vitamin for memory. Therefore, the advice here is nurture and preserve your curiosity like a child. Look at the world, look at the knowledge you need to learn with eager eyes ready to explore. As Leonardo da Vinci once wisely said, just as eating against one's will is injurious to health, so study without a liking for it spoils the memory, and it retains nothing it takes in. Or, as the philosopher Rousseau observed, the more a man knows, the stronger his curiosity. There's a fascinating two-way relationship here between curiosity and memory. When you're more curious, you remember better and longer. Conversely, you'll more easily develop new curiosities about related or deeper topics when you already have a specific knowledge base. It creates a positive feedback loop that fuels continuous learning. Because curiosity is vital, the author offers unique advice, particularly for students, but relevant to all of us. Be extremely wary of the phrase, "Ugh, this is so boring." Indeed, many of you have uttered this phrase at least once when faced with a subject you didn't like. Maybe the textbook was dry, the teacher wasn't engaging, or you felt the subject was irrelevant to you. When we label something boring, we often develop mental resistance and oppositional attitude. We sit in class distracted, daydreaming, just waiting for the bell. We study only to pass, just hoping not to fail. I was like that too back in school. Whenever it was time for history or civics class, that feeling of boring would wash over me. Looking back, I realize I wasted precious opportunities to absorb that knowledge. If I want to learn about it again, I don't have the same time or conditions. We must realize this. Our attitude towards a subject or field of knowledge determines how we approach it and the results we get. By shifting our mindset slightly, instead of saying boring, try finding something interesting, a new perspective. This question sparks your curiosity about it, even if you dislike the teacher's style or the curriculum structure. If you approach the knowledge with curiosity, you'll discover its value on your own. Learning will become much easier and more effective beyond just getting a grade. Learn for the goal of personal development, to enrich your worldview. History, which might seem dry, helps us understand the past and draw lessons for the present and future. Politics, seemingly distant, helps us understand social structures, rights, and responsibilities. Difficult classic poems hold the beauty of language and the souls of our ancestors. All knowledge has its own value. When we accumulate a broad and deep knowledge base, our thinking becomes sharper and our perspective broader. Therefore, when you have the chance to learn, cherish it. Approach knowledge with an open heart and a curious mind. You'll remember longer and more profoundly, and that knowledge, even if seemingly unrelated, will silently exert a tremendously positive influence on your life and career later in unexpected ways. So now we have two methods: strategic repetition and nurturing curiosity. Are there more? You bet! Let's move on to the third method with a striking name: lion memory. This third method is based on a fascinating truth. Humans, like lions and other mammals, have instinctive memory mechanisms linked to essential survival activities, especially eating and foraging. By mimicking some characteristics of lions during hunting and survival, we can activate these powerful memory mechanisms in our brains. Dr. Ikegaya suggests we learn from these three characteristics of a lion to enhance memory. 1. Learn when hungry. Have you noticed how a lion's senses become incredibly sharp when hungry? It must focus intensely on observing, listening, and smelling, identifying potential prey and recognizing danger. Its brain operates at peak capacity. Surprisingly, this holds true for us humans as well. When we feel slightly hungry, not starving to the point of dizziness, our body produces certain hormones, like ghrelin. These hormones signal hunger and stimulate the hippocampus to produce more LTP. The effect is almost like stimulating the hippocampus with electricity in a lab. What does this mean in practice? The ideal time for us to memorize things and to commit information we want to deeply ingrain is when our stomach is a bit empty, especially before meals. However, our everyday habits often do the opposite, don't they? After work or school, we usually rest, watch TV, scroll through our phones, and eat a full dinner. Only then do we sluggishly sit down to study. By then, the body has shifted into rest and digest mode. Blood flow is concentrated in the stomach, and the brain is less efficient for memorization. So try changing things up a bit. Before dinner, dedicate 15 to 30 minutes to memorizing what you need to remember. English vocabulary, a poem, math or science formulas, and the main points of a history or geography lesson. You'll be amazed at the effectiveness of this golden study window. What about after a full meal? That's the perfect time to relax and rest. Forcing your brain to memorize, then, is not only less effective. Still, it can also cause fatigue and stomach aches because blood isn't optimally focused on digestion. Let your body and brain rest. Watch a favorite show, play a light game, or read a relaxing book. Learn while moving or rocking. Lions don't sit still waiting for prey to come to them. They constantly move, pacing back and forth within their territory to hunt. This movement is linked to a state of focus and readiness in the brain. Have you ever seen people memorize things by walking back and forth in a room? Or, as the author shared, he was once curious seeing many students in Shanghai walking around campus early in the morning, books in hand, murmuring their lessons while walking. This isn't just a quirky habit, but a very effective way to enhance memory. Gentle movement while learning, like slow walking, helps increase blood flow to the brain, activates different brain regions, and creates a link between an active physical state and mental activity. It also helps break the monotony of sitting still for too long. The author even suggests that even when you're sitting on a bus or subway train, the gentle rocking motion of the vehicle creates a similar effect to the lion's foraging movement. Therefore, this commuting time is also ideal for quickly reviewing notes, listening to an educational podcast, or memorizing key pieces of information. Don't waste these rocking moments. Learn when slightly cold. The final characteristic we can learn from lions relates to the environment. When the weather turns cold, it's a warning signal about environmental changes, potentially threatening survival. Our bodies, and lions, react by increasing alertness, sharpening the senses to cope with harsh conditions. Applied to learning, a slightly calm study environment will help stimulate the brain to work more effectively and remember better than an overly warm, comfortable environment. We often create a very cozy study space, a closed room, warm heating in winter, comfortable air conditioning in summer, and maybe even a light blanket. But this excessive warmth and comfort can easily make us sleepy and lose focus. After studying, our eyelids feel heavy and we want to nap. So try adjusting the temperature of your study space to be slightly cool, not freezing cold, of course. That slightly brisk feeling will help keep you more awake and focused, and your brain will be better at receiving and retaining information. To summarize the lion memory method, try studying when slightly hungry. Incorporate gentle movement, walking, rocking, and keep your study environment slightly cool. By tricking your body into thinking you're in a state of hunting or facing a survival challenge, you can tap into the brain's powerful innate memory mechanisms. We've covered 3 methods now. There's one final method, also incredibly interesting and compelling, related to something everyone possesses: emotions. Let's explore it. The final method to trick the hippocampus and embed memories deep into long-term storage is compelling: activating the amygdala through emotion. The amygdala is a small almond-shaped structure deep within our brain. It's considered the emotional processing center. Joy, sadness, anger, fear, surprise, love. All the shades of human emotion involve the active participation of the amygdala. What's notable is that the amygdala is closely related to the hippocampus. The amygdala gets activated when we experience an event or receive information accompanied by strong emotions. This activation sends the hippocampus an urgent signal: attention, This information is essential. It triggered a strong emotion. The hippocampus, upon receiving this strong emotion signal from the amygdala, seems to be convinced that the information must be related to a memorable, significant experience, similar to survival-related events. It doesn't need to distinguish too strictly whether the emotion is positive or negative. As long as there's strong emotion, it will prioritize processing that information and transferring it to long-term memory. Think about it. Aren't the memories you recall most clearly, in the most detail, usually the ones tied to intense emotions? It could be the overwhelming happiness of achieving something significant, the deep sadness of a first breakup, the anxiety of giving your first public presentation, the anger of being mistreated, or the moving moment of welcoming a new family member. These memories are often incredibly vivid and hard to fade. This is thanks to the collaboration between the amygdala and the hippocampus. Conversely, information and events that occur mundanely, without anything remarkable, without triggering any particular emotion, tend to slip away quickly. The author asserts that if you try to remember something without any accompanying emotion, you likely won't remember it long term. So, how can we apply this principle to learning seemingly dry, unemotional knowledge? The answer is, actively add emotion to your learning process. This doesn't mean you must cry while studying history or jump for joy after solving a complex math problem. Although if you genuinely feel that way, it is significant. Instead, it means using the power of imagination and empathy to connect emotionally with the material you're learning. For example, instead of just trying to rote memorize a dry fact like the American Civil War began on April 12, 1861, with the attack on Fort Sumter, try engaging your emotions and imagination like this. Imagine. Close your eyes and visualize the historical context. It's early 1861 and the United States is fractured. Deep divisions over slavery and states' rights have led several southern states to secede, forming the Confederacy. Picture Charleston Harbor, South Carolina. Feel the thick tension in the air, a nervous energy mixed with defiance. Visualize the small, isolated Union garrison holding Fort Sumter, surrounded by newly empowered Confederate forces demanding their surrender. Imagine the uncertainty, the whispers turning into anxious shouts, the feeling that the nation is holding its breath on the brink of something terrible. Empathize. Try putting yourself in the shoes of the people involved. Maybe you're Major Robert Anderson, the Union commander inside Fort Sumter. Feel the weight of responsibility, the dwindling supplies, the isolation, the loyalty to a fracturing Union, and the dread as Confederate cannons take aim. Or perhaps you're a young Confederate soldier on the shore, caught up in the fervor of states' rights and defending your home, feeling excitement and apprehension as the order to fire is about to be given. Consider being a civilian in Charleston, watching from the rooftops, perhaps with divided loyalties, filled with fear and uncertainty about what this conflict will indeed mean for your family and future. Feel. Imagine the tense final negotiations failing. Picture the pre-dawn darkness on April 12th. Then, visualize the first Confederate cannon shot arcing across the harbor towards the fort. Hear the explosion, see the smoke, feel the shock. This isn't just political maneuvering anymore. It's open warfare, since the grim determination on both sides and the profound tragedy of Americans firing upon fellow Americans. Let yourself feel the mix of defiance, fear, inevitability, and the deep sadness of a nation irrevocably tearing itself apart. When you personally direct and act out this historical moment in your mind, linking it to strong emotions like tension, fear, determination, sadness, and perhaps even a sense of tragic inevitability, the amygdala gets activated. It signals the hippocampus. This is an incredibly significant and memorable event. And suddenly, the date April 12, 1861, is no longer just a soulless string of numbers. It becomes anchored to a vivid, emotional narrative, making it much more likely to be etched deeply into your memory. You can apply this approach to any subject. Literature. Don't just analyze words. Empathize with the characters' feelings and feel their pain, joy, and struggles. Science. Feel awe and wonder at the marvels of nature, the complexity of the human body, or the logical beauty of physical laws. Visualize molecules moving and chemical reactions happening. Languages. Imagine conversing with native speakers, feeling the joy of expressing your ideas, or the excitement of discovering a new culture through its language. Turn learning into an emotional journey of discovery. Use your imagination and ask, if I were, how would I feel? When you touch the heart of the knowledge, you'll remember it with both your heart and mind. This is truly a valuable and enjoyable memory trick. We've explored the 4 main methods for tricking the hippocampus. However, one more factor, though not a direct trick itself, serves as the foundation and is critical for all the above methods to work effectively. That factor is sleep. Many of us underestimate sleep, especially when busy or cramming for exams. We readily reduce sleep time to study and work a bit more. But this is a grave mistake when it comes to memory consolidation. Why is sleep so important? When we sleep, our body rests. Shoulders, back, arms, legs, all relax. But the brain doesn't. The brain is a unique organ. It remains highly active even while we're sound asleep. One of the brain's most crucial tasks during sleep is memory consolidation. Specifically, the hippocampus works very hard during sleep. It's like a diligent librarian, working through the night to organize the library of information you've absorbed during the day. It reviews what you've learned and experienced. Important information, things repeated often, method 1, linked to curiosity, method 2, learned in a lion state, method 3, or having strong emotional ties, method 4, will be prioritized by the hippocampus. It strengthens the related neural connections and gradually transfers this information to the long-term storage in the neocortex. Conversely, trivial, unimportant information that hasn't been reinforced gets discarded to make room for new input. This sorting and storing process takes time. If you don't get enough sleep, the hippocampus has insufficient time to complete its job. It has to process information hastily, might misjudge importance, and could even discard important information you wanted to remember. That's why after a night of poor sleep, you often feel foggy, find it hard to recall things, and your concentration and memory capabilities significantly decrease. Therefore, treat sleep as an indispensable part of your learning and memory strategy. Here are 3 vital things to remember about sleep. First, the time before sleep is the second golden hour for memorization. Besides, when you're slightly hungry, the period right before bed is ideal for reviewing or memorizing important information. This information will be freshest in your brain, ready for the hippocampus to process and consolidate during the upcoming sleep cycle. Second, don't stress too much if you have trouble sleeping. Many people who experience insomnia get anxious about not sleeping, and this stress ironically makes it even harder to sleep. In reality, the fatigue felt the next day often comes more from that psychological stress than purely from the lack of sleep itself. If you find sleeping hard, instead of grabbing your phone, watching movies, or listening to stimulating music, try simply closing your eyes and relaxing. This quiet rest also helps the brain recover somewhat, similar to light sleep. Don't cram more information into your brain now, as it will only add to the hippocampus's processing burden. Third, prioritize getting enough sleep. This is the most crucial point. Everyone's sleep needs vary, but most adults require around 7 to 9 hours per night for optimal brain function. Establish a regular sleep schedule. Create a good sleep environment, dark, quiet, calm, and view sleep as a vital investment in your physical and mental health, especially for your memory. So, we've journeyed together through the fascinating secrets of how our brain remembers and explored the 4 effective methods, plus the indispensable role of sleep, as shared in Dr. Yuji Ikegaya's book, Exam Brain Science. Let's quickly recap the main points. 1. Understand the hippocampus. It's the gatekeeper deciding what enters long-term memory, prioritizing survival-related info. 2. Method 1. Persistent brain soaks deep. Strategically repeat information using a spaced repetition schedule after 1 day, 1 week, 2 weeks, 1 month to persuade the hippocampus. 3. Method 2. Awaken curiosity. Foster interest, ask questions, and turn learning into exploration to activate theta waves and LTP for easier memorization. 4. Method 3. Lion memory. Learn when hungry, incorporate gentle movement, and maintain a slightly calm environment to harness innate memory mechanisms. 5. Method 4. Touch the emotions. Connect knowledge with feelings through imagination and empathy to activate the amygdala, making information stick better. 6. The foundation of sleep. Sufficient sleep is crucial for the hippocampus to have time to consolidate and store learned information. By understanding and applying these science-backed methods, we can tame our brains, turning them into powerful allies on our journey of learning and self-development. The frustration of learning today, forgetting tomorrow, no longer needs to be a nightmare. Instead, we can achieve effective, long-lasting memory. Now, the most important part is taking action. Don't just listen and think, "That's interesting." Start applying these techniques today. You don't need to implement all methods at once. Choose one method that feels most suitable or easiest for you to start with right now. It could be trying to reschedule your review sessions using spaced repetition, perhaps trying to find something intriguing in a subject you used to dislike, or simply trying to learn a few new words before dinner tonight. Start with small steps, be persistent, and you will gradually feel a positive change in your memory abilities. I hope the insights shared in today's video of BookSmart Insights have provided you with helpful knowledge and inspiration. Understanding how our brain works and having the right tools helps us learn more effectively, work more productively, and live a fuller life. If you found this content valuable, please don't hesitate to share it with your friends, family, and colleagues, anyone who might also be looking to improve their memory. And of course, if you're not yet part of the BookSmart Insights community, hit that subscribe button on our YouTube channel right now. And don't forget to ring the notification bell so you won't miss out on future videos sharing knowledge from other tremendous and insightful books. Your support is my biggest motivation for continuing this passion for sharing. Thank you so much for listening. I wish you success in applying these memory techniques and hope you always brighten that lifelong learning flame. See you in the following video of BookSmart Insights. Goodbye and see you later.